God's chosen ones. 7 strange symptoms you feel right before your awakening. You're not losing your mind. You're shedding who you were never meant to stay. There comes a moment in the life of every chosen one when mirrors lie, when time bends, when your body aches for no reason, and your soul whispers a name you haven't heard in years. Your own. You forget how to fake it. You feel like a ghost in your own routine. People pull away, sounds get louder, light hurts your eyes, and deep inside, something trembles. But this is not destruction. This is divine reconstruction. Because when God begins the rewiring, your entire reality has to shatter. And if you're feeling that right now, then you're not crazy. You're chosen. And this message was written in heaven with your name on it, the moment everything felt off. They always said Dry Hollow was a quiet town. 1 gas station, 2 churches, no stoplights. The kind of place where nothing ever really changed, until she did. Jenna Parker used to be the woman everyone leaned on. Single mom, HR director, worship leader on Sundays. She had a planner full of check marks, a coffee mug that said blessed, and a smile so polished no one ever asked if it was real. But something shifted. It started with time. One morning she woke up at 3:17 a.m. sharp. The next night, same thing, and again, and again. Like the universe had set an alarm only her soul could hear. She brushed it off, called it stress, blamed it on the divorce. But then came the dreams, vivid, electric, drenched in colors she couldn't name. Old memories playing backward. Snippets of her childhood. Her grandmother's voice. A girl in white whispering, "You're not being erased, you're being rewritten." She didn't tell anyone. Not her son Micah, who already thought she was stretched too thin. Not her co-workers who joked that Jenna never cracked. Until she did. At the grocery store the lights felt too bright. Her favorite foods made her nauseous. Even walking into church felt off. The music was the same, the faces were familiar, but something inside her had unplugged from the surface. The sermon sounded like static. The small talk made her soul feel claustrophobic. Then Pastor Elijah pulled her aside. No small talk, no smile, just a strange stillness in his eyes. "You've been marked," he said. "Not for breakdown, but for breakthrough. The reason nothing feels the same is because you're not the same." She wanted to argue, to run, but something in her body said stay. That night she collapsed into bed, her bones aching, her thoughts spinning. She didn't pray and didn't cry. She just whispered, "God, if you're trying to undo me, please, don't leave me halfway unraveled." And in the silence, something answered. Not in words, but in a deep cellular knowing. You're not unraveling. You're being rewired. And every symptom is a sign that you're finally waking up. Part 1. When time no longer obeys you. It started with the clock. Jenna had stared at it for almost 5 minutes, only to blink and find that an hour had passed. Or sometimes the opposite. She'd sit still for what felt like an eternity, and the hands on the wall hadn't moved at all. Time wasn't broken. She was untethering. She stopped trusting her calendar. Alarms felt irrelevant. Even conversations unraveled mid-sentence. Like words were losing their grip on structure. She thought it was burnout. Too many nights awake, too much caffeine. But something deeper was happening. Because time didn't just feel off, it felt like it was watching her. She'd glance at the microwave and see 4:44. Open her phone, and it flashed. 11:11. Receipts, mile markers, random numbers, they followed her. Patterns, portals, prophetic codes disguised as coincidences. She didn't tell anyone. What would she even say? That sometimes she felt like she was floating through layers of her own life. The child version of her, the teenage rebel, the broken wife, the pulsing beneath her skin at once. The days blurred. She'd drive to the store and forget what day it was. She'd hear a song and suddenly weep, not from memory, but from something she couldn't name. A grief too ancient to belong to this life alone. One night she awoke at exactly 3:33 a.m. The house was silent, her son asleep, but the room was charged, like time itself had paused to let something in. She didn't feel fear. She felt dislocated, as if her soul had taken a step out of the human grid and touched something infinite. Then it hit her. This isn't confusion. It's a spiritual detachment from the illusion of the clock. God is disconnecting me from man's rhythm, so I can hear heavens. And from that night on, she stopped asking, "What time is it?" Instead, she asked, "What moment am I being called to wake up in?" Because the chosen ones don't awaken gently. They rip through timelines. They slip between veils, and their destiny won't wait for the calendar to catch up. Part 2. Your body starts saying no. At first, it was subtle. Jenna would wake up feeling off. Not sick, not exactly tired, just wrong. Like her skin didn't fit. Like her bones remembered a truth her mind hadn't caught up to yet. She tried to brush it off, blamed it on stress, hormones, maybe grief. But her body wasn't just tired. It was rejecting something. Her favorite morning coffee made her nauseous. The cinnamon bagel she once loved felt like chewing cardboard. Even her shampoo made her stomach twist. The scent of lavender, her old comfort, now gave her a headache. She stood in the grocery store one afternoon, staring at aisles she used to walk blindfolded. Suddenly, everything felt heavy, processed, plastic, like her body was screaming, "We don't belong to this anymore." Then came the aches, muscles tightening without reason, pressure behind her eyes, tension crawling across her shoulders, as if her nervous system was on high alert, as if every cell was trying to escape the routine she kept forcing it into. She cancelled lunch dates, skipped church. He stopped returning calls, not out of depression, but because her body refused to fake the old rhythm. She tried to explain it once. Her sister asked, "Are you sick?" Kenneth whispered, "No, I think I'm changing." Because this wasn't illness. This was a shedding. Her stomach tightened at the thought of her 9-to-5 job. Her heart raced when she walked into certain rooms. And after a meeting one Monday, she found herself in the bathroom stall, sobbing because someone had spoken a lie, and her body responded like it was under spiritual attack. "What is happening to me?" she whispered to the floor tiles. That night, in bed, her chest felt tight again. She placed her hand on her heart and heard a whisper, not from outside, but from within. "I'm not sick, and detoxing the life I no longer align with." The job, the friends, the rhythms, the identity. Her body, once so obedient, was now her prophet. Every headache was a message. Every wave of exhaustion was a holy boundary. Every food aversion an invitation. Eat only what holds light now. No one warned her that awakening would be physical, that spiritual upgrades would rewrite her taste, her sleep, her skin. But Jenna was learning. Your body will start saying no. when your spirit is finally ready to say yes. Part 3. The human game falls apart. The morning Jenna quit was nothing special. No dramatic event. No explosive argument. Just a stillness. A holy silence that swallowed her whole while everyone else laughed about deadlines and marketing metrics. She looked around the conference room. Neatly dressed people pretending everything mattered. Quarterly goals, team synergy, the snack rotation, and all she could hear was, "This isn't real anymore." It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't burnout. It was truth breaking through the illusion. The game she'd mastered for years, the corporate smiles, the polite ambition, the polite lies, suddenly felt like trying to breathe underwater. She stood up mid-meeting. No one noticed at first. Then her boss said, "Jenna, you okay?" She stared at him, and something in her spirit answered before her mouth did. "I'm not supposed to be here anymore." She walked out. No plan, no next job, no explanation. She sat in her car, gripping the wheel, heart pounding. But not from fear, from release. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't playing to be seen. She was stepping out to be true. Later, she scrolled through her phone. Instagram posts, promotions, pictures of people she once envied. Okay, and they all look like avatars now. Empty smiles in a game she no longer played. Jenna didn't want attention. She didn't care about applause. She didn't want to prove them wrong or make something of herself. She just wanted to be real. She turned off her phone, sat in silence. The whisper, "If I'm not chasing anything anymore, what am I supposed to be becoming?" That's when it clicked. She hadn't failed. She hadn't lost motivation. She had outgrown the illusion, the hustle, the comparisons, the shiny distractions wrapped in gold but empty of God. They weren't her oxygen anymore. They were chains, and chosen ones. They don't pretend forever, not when their spirit starts remembering heaven. So if you've lost interest in things that once defined you, if success tastes bland, if the crowd feels fake, you're not fading, you're exiting the simulation. And every part of your soul is saying, "I was never meant to play the game. I was meant to change the world that built it." Part 4. Your emotions start screaming. Jenna had always been the calm one. She knew how to hold it together. In funerals, in fights, in Friday traffic. She'd nod, breathe, smile, even when her world was quietly falling apart. But now, a song came on the radio. A lullaby her mother used to, and she had to pull the car over. Tears rushed down her face like they'd been locked behind a dam for decades. Later that week, she snapped at a stranger in line at the pharmacy. The woman hadn't done anything, just looked at her wrong. And something primal inside Jenna screamed, "I'm tired of pretending I'm okay." She was unraveling. Not in public, but inside. Her emotions no longer asked for permission. They poured through her like floods. Grief, rage, love, joy, each wave louder than the last. One moment she laughed so hard she choked. The next, she was curled up on her bathroom floor, sobbing over a memory she hadn't thought of in 20 years. "What's wrong with me?" she whispered. But the truth was, nothing was wrong. Everything was releasing. Every buried heartbreak, every suppressed scream, every "I'm fine" she ever forced through gritted teeth. They were all coming up now, not to punish her, but to free her. Because before the final awakening, the emotional body has to be cleansed. And chosen ones? We don't get to bypass the purge. We feel it all. The pain of our past, the wounds of our ancestors, the grief of a world asleep. She wasn't breaking down. She was becoming uncaged. Every tear was an unlocking. Every outburst was a cleansing. Every wave of emotion was her body's way of saying, I will no longer carry what was never mine to hold. It was terrifying to feel so much, to not know what mood would greet her in the morning, but it was also sacred, because only those who've touched deep sorrow can carry deep compassion. Only those who've raged can hold righteous fire. Only those who've wept can truly see the wounds in others and say, me too. So if your heart swings wildly these days, if you cry over commercials, snap without warning, or find yourself grieving things you can't name, don't judge it. Don't numb it. Let it scream. You are not emotionally unstable. You are emotionally unfiltered. And heaven is using your tears to baptize what's coming next. Part 5. You start losing people. At first, Jenna thought it was coincidence. One friend stopped returning texts. Another cancelled dinner. Again. A cousin unfollowed her on Instagram after 15 years of heart emojis and birthday shoutouts. She didn't fight it. She just noticed. The invite slowed. The phone got quieter. The house, once a hub of noise and movement, became a sanctuary of stillness. And then came the ache. The kind of ache you can't bandage. The kind that comes from realizing people you thought would walk with you forever were only assigned to a few chapters. One night, she sat across from a photo album, half laughing, half crying at memories that felt like they belonged to someone else. Vacations, promises, lifelong friendships that didn't survive the shift. She wrestled with it in prayer. God, why does elevation feel like isolation? No thunder answered. No voice, just silence. But the kind of silence that doesn't ignore you, the kind that holds you. And in that stillness, she remembered something Pastor Elijah once said. Till your frequency changes, not everyone can hear you anymore. It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't ego. It was alignment. The truth was, Jenna hadn't pushed them away. She had just stopped shrinking to stay accessible. She had stopped pretending, stopped laughing at jokes that pierced her spirit, stopped dimming her light so others wouldn't feel exposed. And when she rose, in honesty, in power, in spiritual clarity, some people couldn't breathe in that atmosphere. They weren't evil. They weren't wrong. They were just finished. Their assignment in her story had ended, and heaven had cleared the page, so the next ones could arrive. That's the thing about being chosen. You'll lose people. You'll lose places. Sometimes you'll even lose versions of yourself. But every loss is holy. Every exit is sacred. Every goodbye echoes with God's whisper. I had to remove them, not because they weren't good, but because they weren't equipped for where I'm sending you. So if your circle's shrinking, if the calls have stopped, if your heart aches for connections that feel like distant dreams, let it go, because chosen ones, we don't keep what can't survive the light. And the more you rise, the more heaven rearranges who can walk beside you. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. Jenna never got a grand announcement. No lightning bolt. No angel at the door. Just silence. And a steady unraveling. Time stopped, obeying. Her body started rejecting. The world lost its color. Her heart started weeping for no reason. And her circle shrank until even her reflection felt unfamiliar. But what she thought was the end was the beginning. Because here's what she finally understood. You don't awaken with fireworks. You awaken with fire. And the fire doesn't ask permission to burn away the lies. Every symptom was a sign. Every ache was a message. Every loss was a clearing. She hadn't been abandoned. She'd been activated. Jenna stood one morning at the edge of a field behind her house, sunlight barely brushing the dew-soaked grass. She closed her eyes. She no longer needed explanations. She no longer needed all the answers, because something quiet and holy had settled inside her. I'm not broken. I'm becoming whole. She looked up and whispered, Even if no one claps for this, even if they say I've changed, even if I walk this road alone, I will keep going, because now I remember who I am. Maybe God didn't choose you to be seen and to be sustained in secret. Maybe the silence was never punishment, but protection while heaven finished writing your next assignment. Are you sure you're not one of God's chosen? Just because you haven't seen the miracle yet? Because sometimes the miracle isn't an event. It's the version of you who survived everything meant to destroy you. If this story spoke to your soul, then the next one will go even deeper. Subscribe so you don't miss it. If you felt these symptoms, if you're still standing through the shift, comment below. I'm not broken. I'm being rebuilt. And if someone you love is walking through a silent breakdown, share this story. You never know. Your share might be the confirmation that someone's soul has been begging for. You're not crazy. You're chosen. And this is just the beginning.